This afternoon we've got two of our sustaining members coming to present to us, and first one up is Sebastian, Leeder from Armstrong Personnel. So Armstrong Personnel is a specialist recruitment firm in the engineering and technical spaces with a large focus on surveying. They continue to have a long association with ACSV, attending a variety of seminars and functions throughout the year, keeping abreast of the challenges and developments in our industry. Recently, Sebastian caught up with a variety of field parties on site to better understand how our one- and two-man field parties undertake feature and re-establishment surveys and see the differences in communication styles between party leaders and assistants. This is a testament to Sebastian's commitment to our industry, and I'd like to welcome Sebastian up to the stage to give us a presentation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, the basis of getting up here and having a chat is just to talk about what is the real cost of hiring staff resources, not hiring staff resources in your different businesses, both large and small, and what it actually means for your business and what the impact is on your businesses as well as a whole. To give you a bit of a personal story. My parents, when I grew up, I was I think 8 years of age when my parents first bought a news agency about 10 minutes up the road, actually, in Pascoe Vale, so not very far away at all. And by the age of 10, my old man had me out there selling papers around the corner at the bus stop. Many of you in this room probably started off selling papers or doing a paper round as well. And I guess from their perspective, they were pretty keen on giving us an opportunity to have a holiday, go on some annual leave and take the kids on a holiday. Now, unfortunately, the previous talker, Nicky's given Barry a bit of a bad rap, but fair dinkum, my old man had a guy who came and replaced him, and his name was Barry, and he was an all right bloke, not like what Nicky perceived previously. Barry used to come along, and he would, Dad was referred to this guy, and he was a guy who had his own little business. He had his own little business. He was referred by a fellow person who had a business, a similar retail business, and Barry came along and he replaced my parents in that business, so that allowed us to go on a 2, 3, 4 week holiday. Barry had a previous job. He worked for Tattersalls. He was a courier in the old days. He used to run rolls for the machines or scratchies and all that sort of stuff in a box, and he'd run those out, pick up the empty box and deliver us a full box the next week. So from his perspective as well, what would he do? He'd get someone to go and replace him in his job. He'd come and work for my parents, so that business could continue to run. If he didn't do it, imagine what would happen in a retail business from that perspective. You know, if Dad had just shut the doors, walked away, gone on holiday, 90% of your customers, see you later. They go and find another news agency to put their tat slider on, or buy their paper, or buy their magazines from. A few years later, they got themselves into a point where they decided to buy another news agency. Okay, and they did that on top of running two at the same time. Similar sort of thing, if they went on holidays, again, had to manage two businesses. The other one was in partnership with somebody, but from this perspective up here, we can see a long queue. In a retail business, or in your sector, particularly in a retail business, let's talk about that for now. I mean, you can see the person on the left-hand side there. Her eyebrows couldn't get any more vertical if you tried. The guy at the back of the queue, he's waving his hands around, and he's not too pleased. You got somebody going to sleep, and you got a woman there. I've got a couple of young kids. Anyone in this room got a couple of young kids? There's probably a few out there as well. Look at the mum there. She's oblivious. That kid's about to lose his shit in a minute, and everyone's not too happy. Okay, so the point I want to make is that this happens in a retail sector, but guess what? It happens with my clients and my customers, and it happens with your clients and your customers. The only difference is in a retail sector, you can see it. But unfortunately, from your perspective and from my perspective sometimes, we just can't see those frustrations that are happening. That customer frustration turns to your customers go and look for an alternative. Okay, so you want to make sure that your customers, from that sort of perspective, you've got to keep them on board. Okay, so you want to make sure you're doing everything in your power to keep them on board. Don't leave them Don't leave those survey plans hanging about or whatnot, and you can't get them out because you haven't got enough staff. You need to make those changes and replace those staff on a regular basis. And it affects a lot of things as well. So it affects staff morale if things aren't going so well from that perspective. It affects your bottom line, it affects your profits. And I'm sure that a lot of people in this room as well, that it affects your exit strategies. A lot of people here would have exit strategies on their business. When am I going to get out of here? How am I going to do it? What do I want my business to look like when I walk out of this business, and how much can I get for it? So very, very important. We all know as well that bad business spreads like wildfire. Okay, so bad service, you hate it, it spreads. I don't know what it is about us as a society, but we all like to talk about bad service, bad service, bad service. The good stuff doesn't travel as well as the bad stuff does. Okay, so be exceptionally mindful of that. You've got to make sure as well from your end that you're not missing out. There's a blank one. You're not missing out on the opportunity to secure a relationship with the next big client as well. That small client that you've got today could be your best client in 5 or 10 years' time. I've seen it happen a lot with clients that I deal with people in this room, where they've had smaller clients and those clients have grown and developed. And we have an old saying in our industry as well, today's, from a recruitment perspective, today's candidate is tomorrow's client. Having been with Armstrongs now for nearly 12 years, I've seen that happen on a consistent basis. I've got guys that I've put in jobs 10 years ago. Guess what? Now they're hiring staff from us. And from your perspective, here's a couple of big, developer examples. Stockland being one. Established in 1952, Albert Scheinberg and Erwin Graff established that business. Again, from your perspective, you want to make sure that that survey plan sitting on the bottom of your desk under that massive pile of plans is not the next Albert and Erwin about to get off the ground. So in all seriousness, you've got clients there that are going to develop, they are going to grow, and they are going to become your best clients in the next 5 to 10 years. Pete is another one. James Pete, again, been around for a long, long time. I think they're heading into about their 120th year or so in the next 12 months or so. Similar sort of thing. So everyone in this room, we've all lost a client due to not meeting a deadline or not being able to deliver on time. A lot of that comes to staff turnover, making sure that you're replacing staff when they're on any sort of leave, replacing on a consistent basis. It's happened with ourselves. We've learned from that process and we've implemented processes to make that happen. Again, reiterating from my father's perspective, if you didn't do it, the business wouldn't exist. So from our perspective, I would encourage you all to develop a talent pool. You've got to have the people there to be able to replace people when they head out on leave. Have a look at what you can do for it, budget for it, okay? Going back to my father's experience, if he wanted to go on holidays for 3 weeks, he budgeted for a holiday. He also budgeted to get some staff on board as well, okay? If he didn't budget for that staff, that business wouldn't exist. So I'd highly encourage you, there's people in this room that do that, absolutely, and they utilise us and they utilise other casual pools that they dip into as well. You've got to budget for that sort of thing when you're looking to go on leave, whether you're a business owner or whatever it may be. You've got to look at replacing that person on a consistent basis. Let's look at a licensed surveyor, for example. There's going to be some people in this room that might say, "Hey, I've got my licensed surveyor. He's going to go on annual leave for 4 weeks," and you're encouraging me to go and employ somebody else to cover him at the same time. And you think, shit, that's a lot of money. I'm paying 2 wages to do one job. I guess what I would say to that is, for example, in your guide for fees, and depending on how many of you stick around this sort of mark, but if you're at the 200, 210, 220 mark for a licensed surveyor on an hourly basis, there's enough money within that pool to be able to pay your person, get somebody on contract, whether that be through ourselves or somebody else. Sure, you're not going to make as much money from that perspective, but you've got to think longer term. How many clients are you not annoying by being able to deliver on time because you've got somebody who can do it? The other advantage I want to mention as well is the fact that when Barry came and did this stuff for my parents as well, it wasn't a one-off, okay? So there was a relationship developed. He did it on a consistent basis, okay? So again, I would encourage you, if you're going down this path, and again, there are people in this room that do this with us, you get the same people back all the time, so they become familiar with your business. They can come in and they can hit the ground running pretty much straight away. Again, how many clients come and go? As I was saying for it, budget for it next time. But I would also encourage you to have a look at, over say this financial year, 2013-14, have a look at your previous financial year, 2012-2013. Have a look at your client list. See how many clients came and went during that period. And the ones that did disappear, have a good hard look at them and say, you know, why did they disappear? What was it down to? Sure, some of them may not have had the work, or they may not be in business anymore. But I guarantee you some of them would have left because people weren't able to deliver on time. Promoting from within. Again, I hear this a little bit from people, and I'm all for it. We do it in our business. You have to. You've got to promote from within, absolutely. But the problem with promoting from within is that every time you fill a hole, you've got another one to fill it. Okay, you've got a hole to fill, you're going to dig another hole, and you're going to fill that one. You're going to end up with another hole. And guess what? It doesn't matter where you start in the chain, from up here or in the middle or down here. However far you go down, there's always going to be a hole to fill. The only way this bloke's going to be able to fill his last hole is if he delivers a truckload of dirt and fills in that last hole. Similar sort of thing from a staff perspective. The only way you're going to fill in that last hole is if you've got a pool of people that you can tap into to fill it in, because somewhere along the line it's going to affect the process that you've set up and the systems that you've set up. You're either going to put someone else in the business under pressure, your customer's not going to be happy, you're not going to be able to deliver on time, invest accordingly, and it'll all work out. Anybody know this guy? Who knows this bloke? Look familiar to anybody? 5 years ago, plane crash, Hudson River, ring a bell? He's the pilot, Sully, January 15, 2009, flight 1539, when the flock of geese hit his plane. And this was the outcome. So they took off at 3:25 in the afternoon, and 6 minutes later, that's where he found himself. So Sully was a highly skilled pilot. Imagine he was on leave. Imagine he was on annual leave or sick leave, long service, whatever it may have been. How do you think the airline replaces somebody who's on annual leave? Who does he replace him with? You would hope to hell he replaced him with another experienced pilot if they were on leave. They're not the airline, I should say. They're not going to cancel the flight either. How often do you hear of a flight being cancelled? It's very, very, very rare that a flight is cancelled. Okay, places like airlines, they have policies in place, they have systems in place to make sure that that does not happen. Can you imagine if a flight is cancelled, it's got 200, 300, 400 people aboard? The amount of complaints and the amount of bad publicity that sort of thing gets on a consistent basis. Some companies out there put their staff into roles that they're just not qualified for, and they lack the knowledge and the experience to perform in that role. So again, you've got to make sure that if you are filling those holes and somebody goes on leave, make sure that person has got the right skill set to do the right thing. On that flight, one of the flight attendants, this lady's name is Donna Dent. She was one of the flight attendants on that flight. Did a fantastic job at assisting people getting off board and whatnot safely. There were no fatalities whatsoever. But can you imagine that Donna was in charge of this plane, and Sully was away? Do you think the outcome may have been a little bit different? Who thinks the outcome might have been a bit different? Considerably, absolutely. Okay, so the only way that you might get me on a plane with her flying it is potentially if it looked a little bit like this. But even then, I probably still wouldn't get on it. So you've got to make sure that from your perspective, in your businesses, treat your business with the same attitude as an airline. Replace your staff with the right people on a consistent basis, and don't leave any holes that need filling. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions or anything if...
Any questions?
A quick one or two.
Yep. Don?
Sebastian, how many, sorry, you wanting to be on?
Yes, I am. Sherry will bring the microphone.
Just got to wait for the microphone, sorry.
In your pool of licensed surveyors, if I rang up tomorrow, I've got a loud voice. If I rang up tomorrow and said, yes, I need someone.
So how many, and you need somebody for a short period of time?
Oh, well, yes, or even a long period of time.
Yep. So again, there are different mixes of people that we've got. So yes, we have a talent pool of people that we can tap into from that perspective. I would suggest to you at the moment, short term, there would be upwards of a dozen licensed surveyors that we could tap into to do that job for you. Probably multiply that by about 5 or 6.
Okay, thanks very much, Sebastian.
Thanks, Alan.